Hey guys, good day. Magandang araw sa inyo. And today I'll be drawing a garbage disposal mech. So I'll be basing my design off the back of a typical garbage disposal truck. I'm going for a slightly animated look. I'm thinking something heavily based off a Mega Man game. And I also like the idea of giving it a chomping mouth and hands that it would use to grasp garbage. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so while we're drawing this, siguro I'd like to share with you something that I learned in college. You see, in college we had a professor who disappeared basically at the start of the term. So, nakakainis. I was a freshman and was very eager to learn how to draw anatomy, and we had a professor who was actually quite accomplished. I think he had a PhD. He's a book author, awesome at anatomy, and really awesome at sculpture and perspective. And he was to teach us those subjects, so I was very excited. I think he went to class for just 2 weeks and then he returned during the end of the semester for our exams. So, hindi siya pumasok talaga. Needless to say, we did not learn a lot from him, but that's not uncommon for college students here in the Philippines. There's always that one prof who won't report for class. Given na yun. So, I was really disappointed kasi first year ako nun, and for me he was so good, in my eyes at least, and I think he left all of us hanging. But at least he gave us one advice that really struck a chord with me to this very day. He told us to practice in the cheapest way possible. Okay, so ganito kasi yun eh. We were painting majors, and that's really sad looking back at it now because I never really got the hang of painting. I know what oil paint is, but I do not really know how to use it. My watercolors are actually quite laughable, and I never really learned how to use pastels, charcoals, and most traditional art supplies because in my mind, back then, all I wanted to do was draw with pencils and inks, and if I could get away with drawing, I would. This was also the time that digital art was sort of starting to gain traction here. So we actually saw, or actually visited Will Spartacio's, I think it was called a Learn School in Mega Mall. So from there, I realized that what I wanted to do was make art using the PC. So anyway, this prof told us that when he was in college, he drew on Manila paper. That's actually the cheapest paper I could think of at the moment. And he painted and practiced using household acrylics. Boysen, to be exact. Yung nabibili sa hardware. Because they were cheaper than artist acrylics, and he could paint all he wanted. Now, his point then was that it's really hard to practice when you are concerned with costs. Magastos ang art supplies. Art supplies are really very expensive here. And he was trying to teach us on those 2 weeks when he was in class that we needed to be bold with our practice and not be afraid of making mistakes because we will be making those mistakes. Ika nga, magkakamali ka rin eh. So, I liked the idea a lot and it never got away from me. I recall in high school back then, sketch pads were quite expensive. So because there wasn't a lot, and the only ones you could find in National Bookstore then were, I think those were just the Cattleya's or the Mead sketch pads. And when you're in high school, when you're trying to save up to buy paper, man, those things were expensive. So sometimes I'd ask my mom to buy them for me, and I'd cringe whenever I'd make mistakes. I dreaded not being able to come up with a good drawing because, man, those sketch pads were really expensive for me. So thank God for National Bookstore and their Best Buy line of papers and office supplies. Okay, so when those came out, I literally bought a lot. I'm not sure, but I think I was already working when I did this. So up until now, I even have some more at home. And From that moment on, I was free from the piles of scratch paper that I had at home that I used to practice on. So it was really quite liberating because I could draw as much as I can at one time without having to worry about making that perfect line. And I guess all of my sketches would be in one place, diba? They'd be stapled on that cheap Best Buy paper, and the paper quality is actually quite good for me. I'm actually quite happy for kids these days. Kids who are wanting to get into digital art because, well, for one, PCs are significantly cheaper now, and drawing tablets too are becoming really common. I've started seeing Huyon drawing tablets here locally. So if you can't afford Wacom and don't want to get a Genius brand, you've got options. But if you ask me, I'd suggest you go with Wacom. Even those entry-level bamboos are good. I've actually worked on one for more than 5 years and it's still working up to this day. Okay, so I actually did quite a lot of freelance work with it. With a mid-range PC, i5, even i3 if that's what you have, and an entry-level drawing tablet, you can produce professional results. And I think this is one of the reasons why we see a lot of kids in school or who just barely graduated from college and are already putting us older guys to shame with the work that they do. Ang gagaling, sobrang nakakatawa. And the internet is an awesome place for reference. So if you can't afford books, like I used to in college, you can always go online. There are tons of tutorials out there, so it's really a good time to be an artist. Today I'm sketching quite a bit traditionally, and I've graduated sort of from my Best Buy sketch pads and have migrated towards sketchbooks. The only reason though being they are smaller, and sketchbooks typically have hardcovers, so they're more sturdy. But I'm still using the cheap ones though, and I do not really mind because I just want to draw, and I don't want to be careful when I just want to play. So I miss doing this, and I think that if there's one thing my vanishing prof taught me, it's that cheap stuff do actually make for big fun, and a wad of scratch paper is always better than nothing. I mean, there are tons of great artists out there doing real art using cheap materials. And it's fine, okay? I mean, it's a different story when you're selling them as fine art because when you really need to buy the good stuff when you're trying to sell originals to clients. So, well, don't get me wrong though, so I think there's wisdom in investing in powerful PCs and getting the best art supplies if you can. More often than not, actually I think often, the more expensive brands will really be better. But like I've said earlier, sometimes you can already do what you want to do with what you already have. So do your best to not let your financial standing stop you from doing the art that you want to do. I mean, if you can't afford the materials that you aspire to get right now, then try going for the cheaper alternatives. Stopping is never an option. So if you can go by with what you already have, or try to save up for those cheap starter art kits. I mean, anything that you can do. Just as long as you can start early and fail early. Okay, so there. So thanks guys, and please do like, comment, and subscribe. So God bless, and till my next drawing video, take care.